Over the past few episodes, we've been slowly building out Fisher's Point, gentrifying and repurposing its old harbour district and creating a modernised, beautiful old town. But so far there's been a severe lack of green space which hasn't gone unnoticed by our citizens. So to make up for that today, we're going to be working on a redevelopment of the old Navy Yard district, introducing a massive green cities project to the area, whilst also ensuring some of the Navy heritage remains intact. And this is how we built it. So just before we dive in today, I want to talk about a couple of changes I've made to the stadium since the last episode. And the first one is that I have lowered the roof on the walkway here and removed those old wooden beams, so it looks a little bit cleaner now, I think, and much better with that lower roof at least. I've also added some LOPO signage in various places around the outside of the stadium, so there being one of them, and also around here at the front. I'm still waiting for a big stadium sign to go out here, Pride of Place for sure. But the other thing is this really cute idea from Sambor. Thank you so much, Sambor. Really love this idea, but we have turned these concrete blocks up here next to this building into a little rooftop terrace bar type thing, which I think is pretty cute actually. We've almost got doors out already from that building, so I quite like seeing those yellow umbrellas from back here in the pitch. I still haven't figured out a way to delete these parking spaces, which is super annoying. And yes, we've still got homeless in the stadium. I haven't had the heart to delete them out because I quite like the law that the sponsors are really angry with stadium management at the moment, and the security guards have all been put on performance incentive plans. So today we've got quite a large space to fill, which is this over here next to the stadium, and I want to dive straight into the inspiration for today's build, which is the Navy Yards in Washington DC. So this was a suggestion which came in from David Shott, my Patreon and YouTube member. Thank you so much, David, for your insane support. And what a great suggestion this is. When I was looking for gentrified waterfronts, this is like a prime example of it, and it's so interesting to look around. Obviously, the landscape that we've got is quite different. I've shaped it in more of a port style, but there are elements of that here. As we can see right here, we're going to be trying to do our own creation of this exact building here. Super long shed. Is it the Taylor building? I don't know if that's actually it. With this amazing star decals out the front, bit of greenery, bit of a yard here, but then also this inland dock which comes up to a boat ramp at the end towards this building. But I mean, let's talk about the wider picture rather than small little details like that already. We have got a whole big mixture of brick classic buildings that you can see here, mixed in with these huge glass modern buildings over this side. Now this is just incredible. Look at these trees going up the roof. We've got these like raised green areas in the middle of the buildings, lots and lots of green roofs around here all over the place. So to me this is screaming out urban promenades with all the kind of glass, the modernness and the greenery on the roof as well. So we're definitely going to be doing something with that. We've also got this awesome, curvy, hugely modern building over here with lots of grass on the roof. And then we've got these old, rundown, I'm guessing they're Navy Yards. Maybe you can enlighten me in the comments below. But right next to it, these kind of rundown yards where I guess construction is yet to be started on this area. I actually looked at Street View here and this building is now complete and is a big modern building as you would expect with all of these around. But yeah, look at the green roofs everywhere. Everywhere. This green section in the middle of this building. We've also got a pool on the roof up here. I definitely want to do something with that. We've got another one over here. It's very cool to look at all of these air conditioning units here as well. There's a ton of inspiration we can take from that, and I think particularly this building here where we've got these tiers going up the top. We've got shops down below as well, and this raised green area in the middle. Really want to do something with that. And then, you know, interestingly, we've got this classic brick building right next to it with some lovely car park designs in here too. And we also have, quite interestingly, I'm not sure if we'll do this or not, but we've got this splash park pool over here in one of the old docks, which is pretty cool to see. And I also love this waterfront with the sort of boardwalk and this design out here, this green park. We've also got a little a little boat playground, I'm guessing it is, I'm not too sure, there. And these big brick factories with the smokestack still intact. It actually looks like there's a bit of something going on here, whether this is an old yard or not, or functional, not entirely sure there. But yes, this is the area that we are taking inspiration from today. So what I really want to achieve is this glass green cities type modern living intertwined with these old brick navy buildings, particularly like this courtyard here as well. Absolutely love the design of this. And then with all of these kind of buildings around it too, in little formations and patterns here, all very well spaced out. So yeah, an absolute ton of inspiration in this area. Huge shout out to David Schott again for pointing this out to me. If you've got other areas of inspiration to show me, please do drop them in the comments or let me know on Discord. I absolutely love to see them. So how I'm going to translate that into Fewladelphia is I'm going to aim for this section here to have these modern glass buildings, these urban promenades buildings probably is what we're mostly going to use here, especially sticking out into these prongs. We're probably going to have to reshape the terrain to make sure the buildings all fit in here, which isn't a problem at all. We have to maintain this canal though. This is a really important route. This is the original canal route through from the Fewhaven River down into the Fisher's Point Harbour here, so that needs to be maintained. The rest of this can be shaped as we see fit, and then this area I am going to extend out the terrain quite a bit to get in those navy buildings, those old style navy buildings into this section, so that's the plan there. So we're going to start working our way across by starting with the big glass modern urban promenades buildings, so let's go ahead and see what we can place in here. We're filtered to urban promenades, and what I really like about these is as we go up the levels they also go up in height. So you can see this little one here starts off pretty low, and then if we go up to level 3, I think level 2 is the same height, yes it is. Go up to level 3, we're going to get that step up, and then again if we go up to level 5 we're going to get another step up in height, so we can get a bit of a stepping stone ladder as it were going up that way. And then we've got a bit of tidying up to do out the front to make sure all of this makes sense, but I love the little tables out there. I think that's a really, really nice touch. Okay, so we've got those in, and we've already got a massive truck driving up a pedestrian street. Wonderful. Now there are a lot of really blank white walls on this space, so I do want to cover those up with some murals, but I think we've got some nice little designs that we can work with here. Definitely some trimming off of props and tidying up of surfaces and that sort of thing to do. Adding a bit of green space as well is also needed, which is what I want to talk about next, which is inside this little block here. I want to do kind of a similar thing to what we saw on Google Earth, which is basically like this little section built in, but we're going to detail that up a little bit more, I think, there too. Also put a pool on the rooftop. I'm thinking this section here is prime for that. And we're bumping around because of the train underneath. Sorry about that, everyone. But in here, I want to make use of the cubes that we used last time as well in our stadium build. And we're going to kind of build up an internal plateau, which is a bit higher than all of the buildings around it. So what I want to do is make sure we try and get these so they're merging into the buildings either side. So something along those lines is fine. We'll align the height of them in just a second. I think if we come all the way back up to around about here where this corner building turns into the actual space. But let's lower these cubes down, and they've nicely all come in at the same height actually, which is very handy indeed. I think we're going to do them about up to this space here. And hopefully this will sort of, or we'll get them at least aligned with the balconies. Oh, they're not the same height. Right, hang on a sec. There we go. Yeah, so we'll get these aligned up to all of these balconies here. We'll add a door decal in on this blank wall that we've got here too. So this is the door packs from Crypto Gamer. Incredibly, incredibly useful. I'm thinking maybe a large one here, or we could do a double door out, something like that. No, that one's better. Let's use that one. So we've got a little door out here. We'll definitely put a wall in this side. So I'm thinking I'm going to use the French nice stone wall. Yep, this one is absolutely perfect and also fits in really nicely and perfectly as well. So let's drop that in there, and then we'll see if we can grab this one with Move It and drop this down so it's a nice suitable height to provide a barrier. Okay, with two of them in there, that's not too bad. And then for this massive grey, horrendous... Oh my goodness, what's that truck doing? Might have to put an extra building in down there, potentially. But with this massive grey surface, we now want to use some decals to cover this up and get some greenery on here. Now the difficulty is, like, these grass surfaces here or sullies don't actually snap to the top of the cube, but this surface does snap onto it. Now I know this looks a little bit weird and we will be covering up a lot of that sort of markings on it and trying to make it look a little bit more sensible here, but we're going to put this in all the way around, trying to not get it on that balcony there actually. Like that, which gives us a bit of green space, and then we can come in with some trees and that sort of thing, which will help to cover up some of the oddness of this texture up close, because it doesn't look exactly tranquillic garden like, does it right now. So yes, this will help. Something like that is what I was thinking for here. I'm definitely going to cover that up. I'm not having those trucks going in and out. And interestingly, actually, our commercial demand had completely disappeared after popping all of this, because of course it is mixed use. But it's bounced right back now, which is good news. We've still got demand for all types of zoning. I definitely want to focus more on industrial and office for this build today, because as you can see here, our unemployment rate is still at 22.8%. So it has come down a little bit from the last episode, which was around 30. But there is still a lot of work to do. Ah, yes, here come the people. Wonderful. We also need to tidy up this terrain here. So lots of detailing to do around there, but that is that section. Now I do want to touch on a couple of other important things for around here. And one of those is, obviously we've got a big stadium over there. So I think it'd be very sensible to get some form of hotel in for our players, our visiting guest team, the away team, should I say. And there is this building, which I really quite like, which is the Northeast Inn. And I also think as well, if we put it here, it's going to give us a nice sight line down this street. It's going to be quite prominent, especially with that Northeast Inn sign right on the top of it. Let's go ahead and grab ourselves an alleyway road. And this is not going to be connected up to the main road there. We will bridge across the canal here, of course. We need to go ahead and put in our keys around here. And we're going to grab the Northeastern Inn and place that right up next to the tram lines there. So it's not the most glamorous of hotels. Oh, look, the sign lights up. Amazing. It's not the most glamorous of hotels, but it will do, I think, for what we want in here. And I also think it would be worth us having a touch of car parking here too. So let's grab this alleyway road and we'll bring it around the back so that we can have a few little spaces out the back here. Probably nothing major, but something at least. And we could also have some spaces out here. And then in this space, I'm thinking we're going to have a touch of green space here, and we'll definitely have more green space over this side. Don't worry, I know a lot of people have been saying, where's all the parks? They are here somewhere. But in here, I'd like to start bringing in some more of that red brick vibe, and specifically this US Southwest asset goes really, really nicely in a bit of a repeated pattern here. This is what we're going to use for this space, and I think it complements our Northeastern Inn pretty well too. So what we want to do is just merge these up together so that they fuse in and look more like it's one consistent building, and we have just enough room there to squeeze that in next to the pavement. Let's just draw it out a little bit to give it a tad more breathing room there. I think actually looking at this, let's see if we can pull it further away from the road, and then what we can do is complement this side with this little space being green and another green space in front of these assets here. Very similar to what we did in the Fisher's Point Old Town, just to give a bit of a barrier to the edge of the road without interfering with the pavement. Oh, look at all the people. Fantastic. And we've reached milestone 16. How wonderful. An extra 400,000. Thriving metropolis. I actually don't think I've ever got this far in a city before. So this is the first time in Cities 2 that we've hit milestone 16. And we're making 50 grand an hour, so things are looking up. Now just before we move on, if you're looking at these urban promenades buildings and thinking, I want that pack, why not check out today's video sponsor, which is Instant Gaming. If you're looking to pick up any of the Cities Skylines II content creator packs, or if indeed like me you like to play a lot of different games and don't always want to have to pay full whack to get each one of them, do go and check out my Instant Gaming link in the description below. Instant Gaming has massive discounts across a whole host of games, including Planet Zoo and all of its corresponding DLCs, the entire Sims shebang, and many, many, many more. And if you purchase something via my link, it also helps to support the channel, which is of course always greatly appreciated. Okay, so continuing our sort of modern area, I actually want to use some of these Japanese assets. We're going to use the static ploppable version of it because I'm going to do a bit of fusing, which interrupts them a little bit. But also, I don't really want too much more residential. Well, we could have a little bit, but I definitely want some jobs in here as well. So what we're going to do is place in 4 of these, and we're going to arrange it into a nice little block. So if I hold Alt and move it, it will spin it perfectly round in 45-degree increments, so we know we're getting it in super symmetrically, which is always helpful. And then what we can do is just kind of fuse them into the back of each other. Like this, which gives us this kind of somewhat interesting little block here. It's sort of not super modern, hyper modern like our urban promenades buildings, but it's got a little modern touch to it while still kind of having that slightly bricky look. And in fact, it is actually brick, I can confirm. But we're going to recolour it a little bit, and I got to work out which one it actually is here. It's this one. We're going to give this a slightly darker brick look, a little bit more reddy, a little bit darker, something like that, I think, would suit pretty nicely. So if we copy that, we can paste it onto each of the other buildings here. Like so, and I just think that gives it a little bit more of a suitable vibe to sit into our brick area. I wonder if it's a bit orange compared to the other brick buildings that we've got over here, so let's have a little play. That's a bit nicer. So the other thing I do want to do with this is of course give it a green rooftop so it fits in with our green, nice, natural green cities area. I want to call it green cities, I know that's not CS2. And we do have this decal which fits on top of buildings, which gives us a nice grass effect to it. Now it's a little bit patchy, so we're going to have to layer on an absolute ton of these. Like that, but we get our grass roof from it. And then we can also do some extra things around the building, I think, as well. Again, with these real vision decals, which are just incredibly, incredibly useful. If we snap to surface, we've got things like this ivy. We could add some of this coming down the building as well, just to give it a bit more of a kind of green, natural look. I think might be kind of cool here. We've got other ones as well that we can add. So, I mean, that looks more like grass, so we probably won't do that one. And the ivy works wonders for now. We bring that all the way down the middle here. Got this nice green strip, and we can do it in other places as well, just to add that little bit of extra greenery, which I quite like the effect of. And like that, it is very green. We're definitely going green cities. I kind of want this area to be a little bit of a like save the city type area. Plant more trees, that sort of thing, because I know, wow, look at our death care problems. We're having a death wave here. I know a lot of you commented that in the Canal District there was no green space whatsoever. I mean, there is a big park right here, and we're going to do other big parks, so there will be green space near it, but yes, there was no green space in there. So we're kind of saving the city by planting green space on the buildings in this harbour area, is what I'm sort of attempting to go with here. And I also really like that we do have some murals that kind of represent that as well. So if we take a look at some of these, for instance, here you go, Reclaim, Rewild. I quite like these. I feel like it goes with it. I mean, it's got animals on top of the build. I thought it was dinosaurs for a second, but it's not. That's okay. But I feel like we could do some of these murals on the side of our urban promenades buildings where we've got all that white space. I just think like this just suits so well this particular area with that sort of green building theme. Replanting, well, reclaiming the rewild, shall we say. And we've got a few different types of these as well that we can use. I'm trying to see where we've got other big white walls to fill. Here's another space. So yeah, another reclaim, rewild mural here. Absolutely love this, and I think that adds a nice touch to this area as well. We could actually do these all the way up, potentially. Well, there is another one here, in fact. Oh, that does fit nicely there. Just takes away some of that stark whiteness, doesn't it? Yeah, let's put one on the side of all of these buildings, I think. And we'll really carry that theme through very heavily in this area, shall we say. I like that. It's maybe a little bit random, but it's definitely in keeping with the idea of what we're going with for this neighbourhood. I mean, we are literally about to put in some big brick factory style buildings. So you can imagine they've sort of been demolished one by one and replaced with these awesome green cities developments. That's what I'm thinking. Anyway, right. Let's have a look at this space. And we do need to connect into the main road because yes, this did not connect nicely in the previous episode. I said, I wonder if it'll connect nicely. I thought it had, and no, it has not. So they're doing a U at the end of the road. It will not go into that super node no matter what I do, just because of where the tram is going into it. So we're going to connect in here instead. So let's bring a connection straight out of this junction onto this road. Like that, and then we'll just want to do some adjusting here and just bring that back a tiny bit. I definitely want this to continue over here into our rail yard, which we may come on to later this episode, potentially the next one, depending on how long all of this takes me to put in, but we shall see about that. Now I'm thinking here we'll have a green space area, maybe with a tiny cafe if we can do that here. And I'll probably continue on this park, I think, a little bit over this side before we come into more of that industrial area with some of the rail sort of stemming off the main line at the end of the park. And then along here, I do want to use some of the US Southwest residential medium assets because these, again, we place them in, have this super modern look to them, which I really, really love. And I think definitely going for that red colour is what we want here. But these are the types of buildings I feel like I saw when I was looking around Washington and the Navy area, some of the more modern buildings to them. And they've also got great roofs that we could also make green if we wanted to as well up here. I don't think I'm going to do rooftop gardens up there. They seem to have like these nice little penthouse areas anyway with seats already out there and that kind of thing. But I think we'll definitely put some of our green topper like we have done up here on top of these just to give them that nice green effect to blend them into the area. So with that, I think what we'll do is go through and detail these spaces here, including the little park, and then we'll come on to our Navy Yard build. Okay, so we've got ourselves a very green neighbourhood with a couple of rooftop bars with swimming pools. Bit of a larger one over this side as well that you can see here. Lots and lots of street side cafes like these two here, and also these two over this side as well. Really like these, snug up next to that walkway. Also really liking the green space around this road as you run up down here. And love the depth of the buildings changing as you come down here too. We obviously got our green building over here with another pool top bar area, and then a bit of an orchard, it actually is what it looks like on the roof. But anyway, we've still got a bit of space around here that we'll come back to, but I wanted to get this next part of the build in first so that we can shape it around that. So for this area, we are going to start building out our old Navy barracks, as it were. So I just want to extend this piece of landscape here just a little bit, and then we can do a few interesting things to it as well. I definitely want to have a small little inlet pocket here where we're going to do that small kind of run up to a bit of a boat ramp at this end of it. That's what I'd like to see in here, so we're just going to mark out a little small area for it. It could probably come a tiny bit further over actually, more like there. That'll do nicely. And a lot of this will be keyed in just a second as well. But the first thing I do want to get in is a really large building actually, and that is the Neo Barracks. That's what I want to sit out here. And I just think this has such a Navy building style vibe to it, if it'll stay still and autosave will stop. But there we go. So let's extend this out a tiny bit, and that should do just fine. And then we can plop this in here. And I'm thinking we probably want this end facing out towards the water. And then we can have the slightly grander end on the road at the other end. And then that also means that we don't necessarily need road connections around here, which I think will help us when it comes to detailing out round the outside of it. So let's plop this in right here. Then we can take a little quick look around and look at the stonework on this building. Just absolutely fabulous. Love this canopy style roof here with this kind of cafe and seating area, hot dog stand, whatever that might be in the middle there. Another food stand out this side. Now we will change up, I think, a lot of the outside of this so that we bring some of that surface right up to the edge of the pier. We'll keep some green space in there, of course, as well. But I think this is just a magnificent building. It's going to suit our Navy barracks style area really well, I think. And kind of looks similar to the ones that we saw in Washington, DC as well. And then the next thing I do want to do is add in a really long, thin, like, I don't know what it is, a boat shed is what I'm going to call it, because it's going to come up next to the boat ramp, this side of it. And this is based on this building in Washington, DC, very specifically. So I'm going to use the vanilla ploppables version of this. We might move this building over in a minute, make this channel a little bit narrower, I think, here. We're going to use the vanilla ploppables version of this so that we can place these in, fused in together, and then we'll be adding our own block services, probably some industry, I think, down here to get those jobs up. Although we still got more demand for residential, funnily enough, than we do for jobs, but the unemployment is something I really do want to work on and fix. So I'm thinking something along those lines. We might even trim off actually one of these at the back here. Maybe keep it about that size, I think is looking good. So let's just go ahead and shape this terrain and get this how we want. Yeah, so I think that gives us enough room to also have a quay along here and then the boat ramp, which we'll come back to in the detailing in just a second. Now I do also want to change the colour of this. So I want this to be a slightly more reddy colour on the outside. I know it's not brick, unfortunately, it is. Looks like a metal shed in that sense. I'd like it to be a bit of a darker red colour. I think something like that. And then for the roof as well, I'm actually thinking something a little bit sort of bluer. Yeah, something along those lines is what I was thinking here. So let's copy over this colour palette and paste them into all of these other buildings. Yeah, and that's the type of vibe that I want. Very similar to what we saw in Washington, DC as well, so I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, then there's a few other things that I want to fit into here, like big brick style factories, so that we've got that contrast of this modern glass, well, green cities style development over here versus this older style Navy barracks with much more red brick and old factory style buildings. So that's what we want to do here. And again, we're going to use vanilla ploppables for this because there's a very specific asset that I think would lend itself really nicely to this, which is this USA Northeast Firehouse, which is a fantastic asset. And we can build this out so that this is quite a large factory. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to place 3 of them in a row, like so, like this. And as you can see, 3 of them together starts to give this building quite a lot of stature. And what we can also do here is rotate these back around, yes, so they don't have that big door, so we can just have one of those big doors in the middle of it, so it looks a little tiny bit more realistic, I would say. But those windows look absolutely fabulous and exactly what I'd like to see in a big sort of brick factory style building that we're going for here. So I'm going to copy these buildings and add in an extra few to make this a really long, really grand building. So just like that. And then we can do a few other things to this building, I think, to make it a bit more interesting. So the first thing we are going to do is grab these outside blocks here. So not the middle ones, just the outside ones. And we're going to lower them down into the ground. So that concrete block kind of sits on the ground there, like so. And those windows are peeking out the top really quite nicely there as well. And then that just gives us a little bit more interest to the front of the building. And then, just to make it a little bit more interesting, we're going to use the diagonal roof on this industrial asset to create some interest for us. So let's just grab these. We're going to line them up to the edge of the firehouse building here. Doesn't have to be all the way to the end. Something like that will be absolutely fine. Then we're going to do another row while we've got that rotation on. And we kind of want to drop that in about halfway, so round about there. This may be tricky because we're overlapping our boathouse building now. Something like that. And then I'm just going to recolour the roof so that we get a sort of nice reddy colour. And yeah, that'll do quite nicely. And then we can grab all of these different buildings here. Hopefully we're picking them up. And we're just going to drag them on top of our firehouse building. And then raise them up a little bit so that we get those roofs showing. And I've dropped them. That's going to be really annoying. But what we're going to do is position them into the side of the building like this, so that we then get that sort of red diagonal roof onto it, which I just think adds a really nice sort of interest point to the actual building itself. Now you see those front bits, we'll just need to sink them in, so there'll be a bit of a gap at the front, which is not a problem. Something like that. Okay, so I'm just going to have to go along and rejig all of these. And yeah, there we go. That is the effect that we're left with, which I just think is slightly more interesting than just having a straight flat roof. And it reminds me a little bit of this building in Washington DC as well. Now the other thing I do want to do is add some old smokestacks onto it. Now if you do remember back to earlier in the Fisher's Point build where we were looking at doing some gentrification, I found that you can't add the nice brick chimney stacks without smoke billowing out of them. However, you can add these ones. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to fuse in 2 of these industrial decoration assets. If we just spin them around like this, we'll get this in quite nicely. And we can hide the rest of this asset in the buildings. So yeah, we can grab those 2 props there and we're just going to sink them down so we hide all of that other rubbish that's with them. And we might want to just sink them down a tiny bit further as well to get rid of some of the bottom of those chimneys there. But that gives us 2 massive, lovely smokestacks on our old brick factory building, which I think is pretty cool actually. Really, really pleased with that. And now there's 2 other buildings that I do want to put in before we come on to our Navy barracks. And one of those is actually utilising the French firehouse asset. Again, this is a static ploppable here. I just think this is a really nice sort of historical looking asset that we could place on the waterfront here that could have once been some kind of harbour office or coast guard or something along those lines. And we're going to add a bunch of decals to it to sort of make it look a little bit run down and worn out and sort of like it's sort of crumbling away because it looks a little bit new and modern at the moment. So we're going to take some of that away by adding a bunch of decals to that in just a second. So that's the first one. And the second one, again, is another firehouse, actually. So a lot of firehouses going in here, but they've got that brick look that we want, which is the Eastern European firehouse. This one, which has this really, like, magnificent sort of classical look to it, which, again, I think would lend itself really well at the bottom of our boat ramp over this side. And we could create a little bit of a sort of factory look to it. By again adding another smokestack chimney using our industrial decoration piece. Now with this one, I think we're going to try and integrate this slightly more into the building by adding this as an extension onto the side of it. So something along that, like it literally used to be an old functioning mill of some sort, maybe it wasn't a boat ramp, I'm not sure. But again, this is inspired by this particular area that I've spotted in Washington DC's Navy Yards. Okay, so now we can come on to our Navy barracks, and for that I want to use an Eastern European low rent house block, which is, I think, this specific one. Yes, it is, and we also have this asset that we can quite nicely integrate into it potentially as well. Now I know this has got a very specific look, those balconies definitely are very Eastern European. But it's got the brick look, very simplified look that I think will fit with our Navy district in particular. So with these, I want to have a big central courtyard, rather like this area of Washington DC that we can see here. And then we're going to have long rows and blocks around it to help it sit in a little bit better. Again, very similar to what we see in Washington DC. So let's go ahead and place these in. Like that. Now it kind of looks very jarring and very odd with the rest of this area, but again, I'm going by what I'm seeing in Washington DC here, and it's kind of similar, maybe not quite as organised I suppose as this, but I want it to feel like it was an old Navy barracks and now it's maybe been taken over by small businesses. So I'm going to plop in some small offices in here, maybe a couple of bits of residential, a little bit of commercial, mix it up a tiny bit, but just so that we get lots and lots of people moving about this area. We're also going to incorporate things like a bit of a construction yard around this old factory here. Again, we're going to make that really run down with a bunch of decals. We also have a construction yard out this side, and I think possibly either construction yard or maybe some of the southwest mixed use assets, which I really like. So let's just take a quick look at those and see if they'll actually fit in here. Okay, it was actually northeast, that's why I couldn't find them. Yeah, these assets, I feel like this would go very well in this area. It's got the green roof vibe. We've got some stuff going on the roof here. I feel like this would fit in pretty wonderfully into this actual development. So I think maybe a couple of these aligned like so could potentially be quite fitting in here. We'd obviously need to bring road access out for that one, which isn't too much of a problem. Got a bit of backyard there, and then we could potentially fit in a small construction yard here. Like, I really want it to seem like it's being developed, or is currently in the process of being developed, this area. So we've got some of those old buildings remaining, some that have been repurposed into new areas like this barracks space, and then other buildings which are kind of crumbling and old and yet to have anything done with them, and maybe some areas cleared at the same time as well. So that's what we want to try and achieve with this when we come in and detail it. But I think that's kind of the general formation of what I'd like to see here, with a few interesting old factory builds in there. Of course, the big Neo barracks, which fits in really rather marvellously, I think. And then there is one final little thing that I would like to look at over here as well. So let's just tidy up this terrain a little bit and do a tiny bit of work in preparation for the final part of today's build. So I think earlier on I showed you a very modern building in Washington DC. If I didn't, I will show it again now. In fact, I'll show it again now anyway. But this building, I want to do something like that on the outskirts of this neighbourhood. So again, sort of mixing in this old style Navy barracks right in the middle of all of this great modern development where the area's just been completely gentrified and taken over. So out here, we're going to have a couple of piers out here, but we'll deal with those. They're going to be skinny minis in comparison to some of the other wharfs that we have added in this space. But what I'm going to do is use this building and place it in 3 times over like that, which will give us quite a nice outside to it. I do just want to shift these over a little bit so we get some of those windows a bit more nicely aligned. Right, a bit more space in the building. Yes, something along those lines. And then what we can also do here as well is just sink these into the ground again because they're the static ploppable versions, just so they're not quite so prominent as they are previously. We can add in some door decals and stuff like that to it here as well. But I just think this would be a really cool, nice modern development right on the end of this wharf over here. And in fact, we probably don't even need to come that far out, so maybe let's leave it at this point and we'll shape the terrain around it a little bit, add some car parking and a more modernised area around our office there. And I do also want to come in and make these circular rooftops green as well to fit our green cities neighbourhood. But that should finish it off quite nicely. Now, it looks terrible at the moment. We've got a bunch of detailing to do in here. There is one more thing that I do just want to add before we do that though, and that is this asset here, which doesn't look like anything. It looks like the actual firehouse, but it's the firehouse tower, and I think it makes a really, really nice little lighthouse for the end of our point here. So we're definitely going to be utilising this in this space to create a lighthouse on the edge of our main harbour area here. And with that, let's detail. Alright, so that was a pretty epic project today, and if you have enjoyed this episode, please do hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. We're edging ever closer to 40,000 subscribers, so try and help us get there before the end of the year. But let's take a look around, and I'm not sure where to begin. So we'll start over here, because I think this is some of the best detailing I've ever done in this game. I absolutely love this whole little area. I feel quite proud of it. Particularly the star there, where we've tried to replicate, or do our own version at least, of the star that we saw in Washington DC outside this boathouse or whatever it might be that we've taken inspiration from. And actually this factory at the end here, or this this firehouse works so perfectly for this factory. I did actually put in 2 of them back to back, so we get rid of those sort of colonial style, very classic looking pillars and columns on the front of it. So this actually looks really, really factory-like. I love it. And I also changed this a little bit, so it's more of a wheel base, which I thought might be more appropriate at the end of this runway. And this little fence as well. I love everything about this. Also using the car parking space decals as well to do some little bays here. This was something I saw on Google Earth as well. And then, I mean, not to mention this rundown factory area here. I absolutely had the best time putting in all of these surfaces and props around here with the rubble, the weeds showing through, the bits of trash, the sand, dirtying that all up here. It was the best time ever. What can I say? So yeah, I absolutely love just this little tiny corner of this build. Super, super proud of this surface work and these net lanes here. I think it's come together pretty well. And we have got people walking around. Also really enjoying actually how this lighthouse peninsula looks now with this net lane concrete surface. I think it's a path surface actually running all the way down here around the roundabout up to our little lighthouse, which does have a commercial / residential building in there, so people should go down there. And then of course we got our big old brick factory, and really liked actually the use of putting the road cracks on the building. I know sort of up close it doesn't look super right, but it definitely gives it a very worn effect when you go around the building from a little bit of a distance at least. So I thought that was kind of neat. And then this little yard at the end where nothing's happening to this building right now. It's just being fenced off. And then we come onto our historic harbour site where again we've used those cracks on the walls. Lots of decals to show wear and tear in the plaster and that sort of thing. Really liking this. And then I decided to put a little cafe area out the back underneath this canopy bit, which I thought was quite nice, and a little statue on the end. Maybe honouring some of the Navy folk, if we can imagine that. And then yeah, lots more of kind of similar stuff. So we've got this construction site over here. We also had this area down here, which I wanted to add in a bit more of a construction yard, like it's just abandoned at the moment, potentially about to be worked on with the crane here, similar to this area as well. So we have got some of those metal beams, etc. delivered there in the front, which I think is quite a nice touch. Also added in this little dog park here too, and just changing the surface of it made a huge difference there. So yeah, pretty pleased with that. Then we'll come back to the old Navy yard in a second, but yeah, coming out to this industrial area. Actually right at the end decided to add in this prop cargo ship. Not too sure about it. So I may get rid of it, but and the crane's probably in the wrong position for it. Probably needs to go this side, so maybe we'll do that when we come to build out the abandoned rail yard area here. But yeah, really, really liking this too. And these abandoned wharfs as well. These Real Vision decal textures are just absolutely amazing for this, with the moss coming through. Really don't need to do very much to them at all. And then around our fancy office buildings, we obviously made the roofs a bit green, although that one's a little bit patchy. But really like those green tops. I think that adds to the effect of our Green Cities area, or at least the Green Cities redevelopment of Old Navy Yard area. And yeah, just did some nice surface and pathway work around here. Little food truck with some eateries at the back. Again, 2 more abandoned wharfs here. Not much going on with those. I probably could do with a bit of moss. I think the other texture that I've used on the other one's a little bit better than these, but yeah, it is what it is. And then obviously the old Navy barracks. So we just did some nice little surface patterns around these, making it into a bit of a sort of garden courtyard. Oh look, there's people walking through it. Everyone's moving in at the moment. We have got a lot of zoning blocks in and around here. Mostly office, a little bit of residential, some industrial. I'll take a look at the start of the next episode where we are with unemployment and stats and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's nice seeing people at least arriving and things happening around here. But yeah, just went for this cobblestone surface everywhere, kept everything very simple around here, as I sort of imagined it would be when it was once Navy Barracks. And a nice bit of just open grass, which I rarely do, and I really struggle to do. I still even look at this now and I'm like, I want to put things in it, but no, I think this grass stretch was very much needed here. And also really enjoying these little back alleys here, just with a couple of birch trees sandwiched into them. Quite a nice little sort of shady alleyway between some of the barracks areas there. Then we come on to the Neo Barracks in itself, so just added a few little props out the front, like these park signs, to make it seem like it's a historical building that's now some kind of leisure venue at least. And tidied up all of these surfaces and the gardens and got rid of some of the rocks and things like that around it, which I didn't think was hugely appropriate. Also extended out this little cafe area over here with some umbrellas, which I thought was quite cute. And I think, my goodness, that was about it for it. So yeah, it was an enormous area that we've covered today and a ton of detailing, but I'm really, really pleased with how it's come out. And it does mean as well now that Fisher's Point is getting there. So we've got this area out here and the island. We've also got the hillside still to do up here, but then that will be Fisher's Point pretty much complete. So for today, that will be it. If you have got suggestions for what else you'd like to see in these few remaining spaces around Fisher's Point, or indeed the rest of the city, do let me know in the comments below. But if you have enjoyed the video, likes, comments and shares are really greatly appreciated. But that is all from me for now. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you again next time. Bye bye.